extending down towards the bottom of the page. It includes resolutions, correspondence to the board, personnel matters, and the consent agenda ends just before comments from the board. Provide some comments in terms of the consent agenda.
Yes, speaking specifically to the resolutions, obviously this is a special meeting. I appreciate everyone coming to this. As I think there's some critical business that we do have to address first and foremost. I have on there first the resolution waiving the residency requirement for the agency. This has been in effect since 1981 with the agency. Based upon your feedback, we've had a lot of feedback from employees as well. I have on the agenda sort of the greatest hits, however, you also see the resolution in there. This would not forestall, it would not present a complete bar to hiring someone outside of the county. The practicality of someone's employment can be considered. The example I gave is if someone advised they don't operate a vehicle, they're from Warren County, I'm going to take the bus every day. Let's be real, that's not going to be something that's going to be conducive to someone's ability to work here, and that's going to be something that someone charged with making hiring decisions or recommendations can consider. It also would not forestall current employees from leaving the county. It could also, residency could also be considered a tiebreaker. This is a fairly standard practice. It's the only statutory requirement that we have here in the state of New Jersey is that if you're a public employee, you have to reside within the state of New Jersey, which does not seem like an unreasonable qualification, and you couldn't get around it even if we wanted. So with that being said, that is what this will do, meaning in a nutshell, employees are going to be permitted to move outside of Ocean County. They're also going to be permitted to hire employees who are outside of Ocean County.
Are there questions? Are there questions regarding the resolution for the residency requirement?
I just want to make a comment as long as we're still considering Ocean County residents first. But I understand the urgency for staff, so.
Absolutely, yeah, and that can certainly be a consideration. Like I said, practicality of employment can be a consideration.
And so if you have two employees for the same position, and one is from Ocean County and the other is from Warren County.
Both are suitable.
West in Burlington County.
Both are suitable. You can say, you know what, I want the Ocean County employee instead, just because they reside in the county.
Any union issues?
I have not heard anything from the union. It should not be a bargainable item either. It's not part of our contracts. It's also firing provisions are within our purpose.
Any other questions or clarifications necessary for this resolution?
If not sooner, as they say.
Number two.
Number two, I have here a resolution asking to dispose of quotes and appoint a special investigator pursuant to comments that we previously had. The only thing I really want to pull out of this, because I think everyone's really already familiar with this, for the moment I have on here limited to the social worker units, because I think that based upon our discussions is where the immediate need is. However, 7,500 is the limit I have on that, and I shouldn't say if, but when we get to a point where that is wanting down, and the want or need is to expand that to a much wider area, the resolution can be amended with your consent up to another $10,000 for a wider investigation as necessary as the board. So I do have a recommendation to you, a memo to you for Dasti Staiger, not of course casting aspersions to the other quotes that were obtained, which were from our current labor counsel, Syllables Zabarsky, as well as our special counsel, R.C. Shea and Associates, who I'm sure could certainly do a fine job. However, retained as our conflict counsel is Dasti Staiger. There's also, because they're not regularly receiving cases per se, there is a greater level of distance there, which I think adds to neutrality and impartiality to this type of investigation that's really important. So that's the only commentary I really have on that, but maybe to explain a little bit why there's a cap on it, as well as a limitation to the social work units for the moment.
And if Dasti and Staiger find that they need to just move, that could be
Yes, we can
by
amend
action of the board.
Yep, absolutely. You can amend the amount of that up to below, I would say below the bidding threshold. However, if we need to even exceed those 17.5 bidding threshold, we can go out to bid for it at that point. But you'd have a lot greater, while they're still doing work, you'd have a greater time to go out for bid for it.
My only concern with that is, I mean, what's the average here? You're looking at maybe 35 to 38 hours or so that they can do around there. it's not even a week's worth of work. Like, do we think we need to make that a little greater? Because, you know, if they get into it 1 week and then the next week they can't finish their investigation because there's not enough, is it better to kind of go and set it a little higher? If you don't use it, you don't use it. But that's, you know, that's just my thought on it. I don't want to delay anything.
When's the next regular meeting?
I agree as well.
2 weeks, yeah.
What does the board think? I mean, we can certainly amend it, I'm open to that, but do we want to let them get kind of like their feet wet and maybe they can come back with an initial analysis of like.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think this would kind of grant them the time immediately to make an assessment of maybe the areas that they'd like to look at, and potentially they can even come back with a little bit stronger understanding of direction, and then if the next meeting's in 2 weeks, we can potentially
Yeah,
increase the cap
and
there.
how did you determine the rate? I mean, you just didn't pick it out of the sky.
So $175 an hour is the going rate that we have for our professionals. The $7,500 is based upon sort of my experiences. However, when we're talking about just the social worker unit, we're talking about 10 to 12 employees. If you were to interview each one for 2 hours, which would be an extremely long time to interview each individual employee, you only have, 20 to 24 hours. Then you have research and drafting. So it should get us to a point where there is a functional report, but absolutely, if there's a need that.
Yeah, I'm open to anything. Karen, if you wanted to do the cap, now.
Yeah, you know what, if we're
Yeah, it's
2 weeks, I think I think
Yeah,
it's fair.
yeah,
Let's really- we
and-
can revisit it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they're beginning tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
Yes.
they'll have, within 2 weeks, they'll certainly have a good idea of where they're going to land. Can you just kind of a little background on Dasti Staiger? Others may not know who they are.
Sure. Christopher Dasti, previously employed with Dasti, who was Dasti Murphy McGuckin, is a relatively newer law firm. However, Christopher, I personally certified as a superb practitioner, very knowledgeable, understands how to do these special investigations. Same thing, I trust, I don't know Lauren personally, however, I do trust his ability to pick people who will be able to get job done, and no less with Ms. Staiger, who's just a partner with her. However, Chris, I know his work personally, superb. He will produce a fair, impartial outcome that really details what the experiences are for people in the social worker units at this time, perhaps later on.
and this will be starting tomorrow.
And he is a Michigan County firm.
Yes.
He's starting tomorrow, so it's
Yes.
4:15.
Starting tomorrow, are we sitting in on our?
Yes, yep, and then for personnel matters, yep,
Okay,
for personnel matters, yeah, we're gonna.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll leave that to you.
Hi, this is Caitlin. If I could just make a comment. I think that this sounds like a great initial plan for part one. I don't know if there's a scope of work, but I would want to be very clear that this would be a phase one, as Commissioner Array said, and that there is an expectation that initial findings will be made in writing or in a PowerPoint presentation to the board to inform a part two. So it's clear that this is just the initial phase of discovery or, findings. There will be more work to include at a later date.
Absolutely, that will be included as a part of any sort of a special investigation. We will necessarily have a report that's digestible, that's reviewable, and to also attend in the course of our meetings to come in and speak with you directly, so that if you have any questions in real time, you can ask.
Yeah, because I do think that this has to go, this is the initial because of the crisis of social workers. But I do believe that this will have to go agency-wide. Like we do, I know Commissioner at the last meeting was very concerned and spoke about special counsel, and I believe, I don't want to speak for you, but for the whole agency, not just for the social
I think the intent
workers.
would be to go agency-wide.
Yeah.
So this should definitely be a phase one.
Yeah, this would be a start, gets us started right away because it eliminates all that other process and.
Well, kind of leaning on them as the subject matter experts, they could likely come back with some
Yeah,
type
and-
of construct of where they want to go.
And I would expect that they would.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would not be an unreasonable expectation.
Yeah.
which you probably would have to go out to bid for, so if you need to do something, for us to do something to start that process, because I know that's a lengthy process.
That's,
Then that may be something we want to, put on the agenda or, make a motion for so we can get that ball rolling.
yes, and even if we get into this and we need that larger threshold, we can go out to bid if Dasti Staiger is the best bid, we can still roll with them. It's just that to go beyond that, you would have to. But this was a way
It's a
to
good
get,
start.
yeah, it's a way to get
Yeah.
this done and moving quick.
It was a start, and that was the reason for one of the reasons for the special meetings. We were able to get it started and running off the ground without having to wait for.
I would just be
Yeah.
curious to understand, I know we were talking about it last time, but could you explain to me, I'm just like not familiar with this, why specifically do we need like legal counsel to do this type of work? Like, I would think it sounds more like a human resource, organizational development, like leadership, development,
Typically,
mentorship.
typically for like outside investigations, like even at the municipal level, when it comes down to like conduct and issues organizationally, we typically reference a third party counsel. It's really kind of impartial in nature. And they typically have investigative experience for other kind of personnel matters. They typically would handle something like I said, at municipal and county level already, so pretty much in their area of expertise too.
The big thing with all of that is that when you have a third party in, people may feel safer to really provide an open and honest opinion as opposed to if you have something to do with the house.
I think the third party makes a lot of sense, like, I
Yes.
think it was more just about like what the council, attorneys.
Yeah, I think it's because that you're gonna, when you get into questions of law, you have to reach out to them anyways. Attorneys by their practice
Right.
are impartial, and again, that's what they do, like the commissioner said, that's what they do.
Right, and there's, with the unions involved, there's always legal issues there, they know where the state statutes and
Yeah.
there's legal, also protective boards when there's meetings, there's knowledge meeting, and when you have that present, it's protective board and also.
I would just think that once we find the initial findings after the, the committee or whatever it is, maybe based on the findings, based on the work that we know needs to happen, maybe we should consider broadening the scope of the third party people that we're looking at. Maybe we don't need attorneys to come in, maybe we need their trainings, or I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and then I would, my expectation and hope would be that with the investigation that Dasti Staiger were asked to do, that not only are they able to see what the scope of it will be, but also in the end, say, okay, this is where we advise you to go.
Right, next steps may not
The
be
next
council.
steps may not be counsel, but it may be counsel.
Maybe.
Maybe
but
something
I just-
under the
I just
direction
don't
of
wanna
council, yeah.
limit ourselves to
Yeah,
that.
and
I just have a lot of human resource people at my blog, so I just don't like the type of work that they do, and I wouldn't want to limit it, like we're only looking for counsel. But maybe someone
Yeah,
else.
no, and hopefully they would have the resources to say, okay, well, this is where we think it should go, that it's not necessarily legal, but you need X, Y, and Z. And again, years ago, when I worked for the police department in Surrey City, the police chief said to me one day, if you don't listen to the attorney you hire, the only one in the room that approves is you. You take the advice of the council, yeah, this is where you should go.
Plus, there's other resources out there and
Yeah.
that do that, still have dealt with issues in this type of environment particularly. And if the attorney's advice is we want that, and that's actually something specialized.
Yeah.
Pretty
This
much a
is,
legal matter.
Yeah.
again, this is a first step.
Yeah, and I think Caitlin spoke to something about that the previous meeting as well, about specialists
Right.
who do the analyses, which I think this would be very interesting to explore.
Thanks for explaining.
Pastor, if I could speak.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and I fully agree, and I think, phase 2 might be necessary. If you remember, a long time ago, we were short on investigators and, that kind of stuff. With all the fraud, I'd like to see a little broader search, after phase 1, so we can address that in 2 weeks. But, there's other areas that I think, need to be looked at also, make sure the staffing's complete. So, thank you. I think we're really going in the right direction. Thanks.
Question, Brian. Reporting by Dasti Staiger, how often and frequent is it?
In a normal sort of investigation, it would probably be maybe when they're done with the report. However, we can always request more. Lawrence Day will be the council tomorrow, so I can talk to them about it.
Yeah.
This is even with just the social work component of it, it's slightly larger than a regular investigation, which might, usually when this is done, it might be between 2 to 3 to 4 different people. But for an investigation like this, we can have one midway, and then, or even by the
Yeah,
next board.
I think
maybe by the
it
next
needs
board.
by the next board, they need to go to the next board, because we need to know if we're gonna need to increase the funding for it.
And even if they're not sure if they can, even if they're not sure with the results of their investigation at that point in time, they can still just give us a status report. There's no cap on it.
Some finding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just.
I think there should be some, it should set some benchmarks we can.
Sure.
After this, well, the first benchmark is 2 weeks,
Yeah, for sure.
for sure. Because if
I would think a
they,
report within a month.
within a month, and then ongoing benchmarks of some sort.
Yes.
Any other questions regarding this or clarifications? Correspondence?
You all received correspondence from 2 employees, Nicole Higgins and Michelle Rusch. Just as informational for you, that's in your board packets. And then, I have listed on here personnel matters. Just a general update, which we already sort of kind of did as to where we are at. There has been additional social workers hired in the interim. We have an interview scheduled for tomorrow with the social workers. I've spoken to a number of social workers who are available, and I've communicated with Pastor Harden as well as Karen about setting up contacts with them as well, which we will accommodate. And then pendency of the investigation regarding the larger investigation for which Lauren is going to begin to develop the basis for that tomorrow based on her observations.
And that's the end of the consent agenda. Any further questions? Hearing none, a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented and explained.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call?
I'm sorry, who's second? Karen?
Yes.
Thank you. Pastor Hartney?
Yes.
Chaplain Miles?
Yes.
Ms. Sternbach?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas Henkel?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mrs. Nardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Bacchione?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Saradnik?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to comments from members of the board. Any board member comments? Taking none, comments from the members of the public. Mr. Wilkie, will you explain, even though I read it?
Certainly. Members of the public are certainly encouraged to provide any commentary and are entitled to provide any commentary. Like board members.
Long meeting. Yeah, we need a resolution, a motion to move into executive session. Who's gonna close it? Second?